Hey, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you're at. This is Glenn Sedgefield, VP of Marketing for DMI. And for those of you that don't know DMI, our agents experience a very tailored boutique IMO experience backed by the strength to compete in our industry, and a place where your success is our success. So it's important that we find ways to elevate your practice by educating you on the products and the sales solutions that matter. So today we're starting our income summit. So why an income summit? Well, really because popular 20th century rules don't apply anymore, and especially when clients go from growth to income. So picture what happens to a client when they stay in growth mode, and 5 years before retirement, the market drops. Because of sequence of returns, their retirement dreams are diminished or possibly broken, right? When we optimize retirement income, we embrace all the tools available in the retirement planning toolbox. We're able to routinely deliver a significantly better outcome for retirees this way. And when we optimize that retirement income, we are routinely able to serve or secure our clients' retirement. And typically, we even have monies left over to help our clients live out their retirement dreams or just fund additional allocations to continue growth strategies. So that's why we're doing this. And this is our number one webinar today. And this is going to be about the opportunity itself. We have Andy Robertson from CSSCS, certification for Social Security claiming strategies, and also Derek Easdon from DMI, with over 15 years experience in the space. And I really appreciate you guys being here. Also, just want to let you know that there is a QR code, a suspicious looking QR code next to Derek Easton here. Yep, right there. And if you want to reach out to him, if you have any questions after this webinar, go ahead and just use your phone to scan that QR code, and it'll have his phone number, email, contact information, everything you need. But so with that being said, hey, also another thing, if you have any questions, we'll attend to those probably at the end of the webinar. We may pick up some during the webinar if it's relevant to where Andy's at in the conversation. But just use the Q&A and chat function. We will get to those questions. But Mr. Easton, do you have anything you want to say or add?
No, I'm excited for this. I think, in my role, so I'm a vice president of Annuity Sales. So I talk to agents and advisors all day, every day. And, a lot of them that I talk to, they're looking for something that can help them take their business to the next level and really help them to help their clients more, right? They're looking for a way to modernize their approach and a way to become a 21st century retirement specialist. Some of the older concepts may not be working in today's day and age. So when I say that, they're looking to take consideration that our industry is actively undergoing tremendous change and can't just plot numbers anymore. So I think that's what you're going to get out of this webinar series today. And something again that can help you to help your clients, hit their retirement goals and help you to take your business to that next level. So I'm excited for you to meet Andy. He is a wealth of knowledge, and I think you're gonna get a lot out of this. So I look forward to it. So I guess with that, Andy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, absolutely. Okay. Hey, sorry I missed the handoff.
No, that's my fault.
Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today for the first of 3 income summits. My goal today is to focus on what this represents from an opportunity perspective. So, Derek mentioned that I have a lot to share. I've been in the business now in my 34th year in the financial services industry. I've served in multiple capacities, including retail advisor. And I come at this from a practical perspective. So meaning none of this is, pie in the sky. None of it is, coming at it from the theoretical. I live this every day. I work with a team of advisors here at my firm that live this every day. And what I'm going to talk with you about and ultimately share with you over the course of these 3 webinars is something that's really made us as a group wildly successful as retail advisors. And our focus has been on retirement income planning. So I know that everybody's talking about retirement income planning. And I think for many of the people that I meet, retirement income planning is one of the things that they do. My recommendation to everybody would be to make it the primary focus of what you do, to really become a retirement income expert and a retirement income specialist. And to do that, you really need to take a step back and look at, first and foremost, what is the opportunity? What does it represent to you? What does it represent to your clients? What does it represent to your firm, your partners, and so on? And that's what I want to focus on today. And we'll talk about some of the other aspects. I'm going to share a PowerPoint with you, and we will kick this off. Here we go. All right. So again, welcome to the Income Summit, the first of 3 sessions. Today, it's about the opportunity. What we're going to cover, again, is what's in it for you, why you want to specialize, and why now specifically. I want to talk about what I call asset allocation versus asset optimization and the key role that can play in defining you as a specialist in your market. And then ultimately, the concept of advisor gamma. What do you know about it? How does it impact you? How do you go about measuring it now? And what role could being a retirement income specialist really bring to quantifying your unique advisor gamma in your marketplace? So what's in it for me always is the question for anybody before they invest any time. And what's in it for you from our experience? And again, this is firsthand practical experiences, 4 times the production from the same effort. So what I'm telling you is for the advisors who've embraced becoming retirement income specialists in their marketplace, what they've seen over time is they're literally doing 4 times the amount of production that they had historically done, and they're doing it with the same effort. It's just a different approach. So finding, what I'll call a system, for lack of a better term, that just puts you in a better position and as a result delivers significantly better results. But that at the end of the day is the bottom line, 4 times the production on average for the same effort. So how do we drive this exponential growth? And it's really simple. It starts obviously with a target. Who are we focused on? What is it that we're doing? And what's our message, to the people that we're targeting? But when you have a target, when you have a specialty, your activity can be considerably what I'll call better. And I don't mean more, I mean better in terms of quality. But also because you're over the target all the time, you see a significant increase to your closing ratio. And last but not least is a significant increase in your average ticket size. So when we look at sales as a concept, right? Historically, we all focus on the result. But the reality is, if we want to see a better result, we have to focus on the things that we can truly control. Sales is the dependent variable, right, in the sales process. The independent variables, the things that drive the result, are the level of activity, the quality of activity, the closing ratio, and our average ticket size. And by taking a targeted approach and being a specialist, we see more and better activity, significantly higher closing ratios, and average ticket sizes that are 4 times what has historically been the industry averages. So from our marketing experience, the things that we have our people focus on, we see that they get 25 buying units every time they market an event. 25 buying units, call it, 40 to 50 individuals, but 25 buying units every time they market one of the events. From that, again, they see significantly better quality in terms of the amount of, not only the amount of people they see, again, but the quality, the people they are talking to are people that we know are speaking, the messaging we're speaking directly to. Our message is aimed right at the people that we've recruited to come to this event. So we are not missing the target. And who do we talk to? We focused on married people who are homeowners, who are between the ages of 60 to 67, and they have $500,000 or more in income producing assets. Now, there's all kinds of people we can help in retirement. We can help divorced people. We can help widowed people. We can help single people. But the reality is the greatest opportunity, and it's all low-hanging fruit, are married people. So today in 2023, we focus exclusively on married people who have 2 incomes, typically own their own home, and they are at or on the doorstep of retirement. They're the ones who control the assets, and they're the ones who are in the best position to make a decision about what we're going to do with those assets. Now, activity. Now, next is closing ratio. So ultimately, the closing ratio is impacted by the fact that our messaging is targeted. It's delivered with pinpoint accuracy. We know that every person in the room, when we deliver our message, we are talking specifically to them. Our message, because we've targeted them, is a message that they need to hear. We don't miss the mark. We're always on point. And then the call to action is tied to the fact that we position ourselves as specialists, not generalists. So in this world that we call financial planning, the vast majority of people truly position themselves as generalists. But in the end, specialists are the ones that really end up in the best position long term. And it's very difficult to be a truly successful retirement income planner if you're not a specialist, because you have to embrace what we call a process, and a process that sets you apart from the competition. Everybody can sell a product, everybody can package up, a portfolio, but at the end of the day, what is the process that the people you're working with are going through that, as they're shopping financial advisors, sets you apart from the competition? Or are you just someone that has what everybody else has, and you're going to just let the chips fall where they may? It's process, from our perspective, that has set us apart. And then the average ticket size, and I'm speaking just to annuities, but the average ticket size historically has been about $50,000. For us, it's $200,000. And it's typically double that when you count the assets under management. So we're looking at an average haul from an asset perspective of over $400,000 for each client that we close who attends one of our retirement income workshops. So the majority of our business, on top of it being 4 times the industry historical average, the majority of the business across the industry, and when I say business, I mean annuity business, is 1035 exchange. So it's money in motion. We're seeing a lot of that today, right? Things are happening from a rate perspective. We're seeing products become more attractive, and it's easy to upgrade somebody's existing annuity. But there's a whole host of people out there who don't have any money invested in annuities. They have significant assets. And if you're not bringing in new money to annuities, then you're not working in the same market that we're working in. The majority of the business using our process is new money. It's new to annuities. So it's additive. Whatever you might be doing currently and the opportunities you have to upgrade existing clients, this would be in addition to that. It wouldn't be in replacement of that. So obviously those two things together, the opportunities that exist today because of the evolution of products and the opportunity to truly position yourself as a specialist within the income space, is a tremendous opportunity to drive massive growth because we're driving new assets and bringing in new money. So specialists versus generalists. Think about how the service industry on the whole has changed as a result of specialists versus generalists. So in the medical arena alone today in 2023, there's 24 board certified specialists. How many specialists do you really see in the retirement income arena? I mean, there are certainly certifications that you can work towards and receive, but are you truly a specialist simply because you have that certification? Have you embraced a process that sets you apart from the competition? And that's something that you have to look at. Okay. I'm going to let Maureen and Glenn handle the questions that come in because there's a few of them coming in. But there's 24 board certified specialists in the medical arena. And what we know after having seen this kind of transition in that market is that specialists earn on average 2 times what a generalist earns. So is there a benefit to becoming a specialist? Absolutely. And if you look at the medical industry, the people who are the most successful financially are truly specialists. Orthopedic surgeons, as an example, come to mind. I have several friends who work in that field as orthopedic surgeons. They do incredibly well. I have other friends who are emergency room doctors who don't make a fraction of what my friends who are orthopedic surgeons make. So specialization is more valuable at the end of the day than generalization. And you can become a specialist in the retirement income space. And I'll talk about that. I know that's one of the questions. I'll talk about that before we're done here today. The financial industry today, from my perspective, a 34-year industry vet, the financial industry today looks very much like it did 10 years ago. And I'm not the only one saying that. But that's the reality. Where we are today, with the exception of maybe some compression on fees, looks very much like it did 10 years ago. But we're on the cusp. We're on the precipice for significant change. And the thing you've got to start to contemplate if you expect to be in this business 10 years from now is, what is that going to mean for me? How is it going to affect me? And what am I going to do to take advantage of the opportunities that this inevitable evolution is going to represent and not end up as a casualty? The other piece of this, and why you really want to focus on becoming a retirement income specialist in particular, is 75% of Americans, according to a number of studies, 75% of Americans will find someone else if their current advisor cannot help them optimize Social Security. So my industry, or pardon me, my business, one of our focuses in working with partners like DMI is to provide the level of knowledge you need to truly hold yourself out as a retirement income specialist with Social Security as a focal point of your message, and put you in a position where you can truly quantify the impact that Social Security can have on a broader retirement income plan. You're going to see that during this class as we go through this, but this is a consistent theme. No matter who's running the poll, the vast majority of Americans are making it crystal clear that they will find someone else if their current advisor cannot help them with Social Security. And what that speaks to is the American public, over the last few years especially, has become much more aware that Social Security is a catalyst for delivering a better retirement experience. So if the financial advisor that they're working with is not hip to the fact that the American public is recognizing that Social Security, while there are questions around what its viability may look like long term, we can talk about that. They know for many, it's going to be the difference between enjoying retirement and living on the edge. And you'll see, again, how that all comes together. Now, there's a fellow named Bob Veers, who's a financial services futurist. And he said, and I agree, as you saw a minute ago, but he said, we will look back on the pandemic years, a time when everything in this profession started to change, and for the better. And what he's saying, if you read any of his stuff, is he's saying we're going to have to become better, more valuable financial advisors if we want to survive. But it's going to be better for us. We're going to build better, more profitable businesses. We're going to have better, more successful relationships with our clients, because our clients are going to be better served and receive more value from the people that truly embrace the changes that are taking place, because those changes are going to make the experience better for all. But if you think
Andy?
about, yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Andy. Just a quick question while we're talking about specialist versus generalist. We have a question that speaks right to that. And what do you think about getting one of those retirement income designations, like RICP or anything like that?
Yeah, I think RICP is great. I think any of those meaningful designations that are going to give you the knowledge, not only to be better at recognizing all the challenges that somebody who's going to retire faces, but also introduces process that you can adopt to help you build better, more fortified plans, is going to set you apart from the competition. I'm a big fan of RICP. I think anybody who's going to be focused in that space should consider that. But obviously, there are a number of other CFP, CHFC. Some of these kind of, in my estimation, they kind of predate really where we are today in terms of retirement income planning. Retirement income planning today is totally different than it was just 10 years ago, because people have gone from accumulating wealth for retirement to distributing wealth in retirement. So the challenges that we face are uniquely different. And that's why I think RICP is a great first step. And we'll talk about some of the things that we do from an educational perspective before I'm done, Maureen, but thanks for that question. So what I would ask you to think about as you look at what's going on in the world around us is, as a financial advisor, what is the single biggest threat you see to the generalist model? So meaning, if you're trying to meet the needs of everybody you talk to, what is the single biggest threat that you see? What might actually put you in a position where your job becomes more difficult? And from my perspective, it's technology. We're seeing technology move at a pace we've never seen before. And we've seen technology, and they're talking about technology starting to displace people in other service industries, right? They're talking about technology like, I believe it's called Merlin, that can diagnose health issues at a rate that's almost 100% compared to a generalist practitioner who is maybe in the 80s. They're talking about that same level of technology replacing the generalist legal counsel. Tax side, anywhere with his service, technology represents change for the run-of-the-mill kind of needs. The less complex, what I would describe as, for us here, the more product-focused need puts you at risk. You're at risk because of the evolution in technology. And artificial intelligence is going to be a major disruptor. I don't think anybody can argue that. I think we all know. The question is, how is it going to disrupt this industry, and how is it going to disrupt me? And I get it every day. I'm sure you are as well. I'm getting marketed literally every day by organizations that are trying to tell me that I can pay a single fee for them to develop an AI tool that will do all of my marketing for me. It's a one-time, upfront cost that's substantial, but then a very small kind of recurring monthly fee, and significantly less than it would cost to have me hire another body to do the same work. And this stuff is real. Am I going to adopt it? Not today, but there was a time where I wouldn't touch there were these flat screen TVs that I forget what they were called, but they were like $15,000 per TV. And now, everybody has them. They give them away like candy. They're, $500 instead of $15,000. It's going to evolve. It's going to be adopted at a higher rate as it evolves and it becomes less expensive. And we've got to figure out what that means for us and how it impacts our business. But from my perspective, the more specialized you are at what you do, the more difficult it is to displace you, especially in a field where that human interaction is so important. But think about, we all know the obvious, kind of technology stories that were complete disruptors, right? Priceline, Expedia came out and completely dismantled the travel industry, right? Travel agents on the whole essentially no longer exist, right? But what other examples are there? Some more recent examples. 3D printing. 3D printing is being embraced by the manufacturing community and displacing human beings every day at a massive rate. And we're talking about at the largest corporations in the largest manufacturing sectors. Arguably, the biggest impact is being felt in the auto industry, where auto workers are being displaced by 3D printing on a daily basis. Ride-sharing apps. Look what ride-sharing apps did just to car services and taxis. These medallions in big cities used to be priceless. Now they're worthless because of ride-sharing apps, right? Ride-sharing apps have completely not just disrupted, but destroyed that industry. How about streaming videos? It wasn't long ago that we were all going to Blockbuster, and then from Blockbuster, we went to Netflix, right? And now you have streaming videos. We're getting to the point where you don't even need cable television anymore. You can just run this stuff right into your house off that same infrastructure. And Airbnb has put a massive dent in the hotel industry, right? I have a large family. We never stay at hotels anymore. So ever since we got introduced to Airbnb, we rent homes when we go somewhere because it's a fraction of the money and it's a much better experience. But here's just 4 examples. It's going to affect this industry as well, and how much it affects you and disrupts you is going to be, in my opinion, a byproduct of how you position yourself. So what we've tried to do through our focus on income planning is really make what we do a focal point of process over product. So for a long time in this industry, it was about product, whether it was mutual funds or it was separately managed accounts or ETFs, or before that, individual securities or annuities or fixed index annuities or variable annuities or REITs. It was always product. Now it's process. I don't want to say that product is irrelevant, but it's process over product. We focus on the experience that we give our clients and then position a plan, which the products are just part of the plan. They're not the focal point. They're just part of the plan. They are the underpinnings of the plan, but process is what drives the creation of the plan. And it's a partnership because of the way we go about it. It's a partnership between us and the client. It's not a product sale that could be duplicated by anybody. And I would say, more than anything, the more process-oriented you are, the more unique and specialized it is, the more valuable it makes you, the human being, right? The more general your approach, the more easily duplicated, the less valuable you become. So the more unique your process is, the more focused it is, the more specialized it is, the more valuable you become. And that's the key to thriving long-term in this evolving market. at that point, technology becomes your friend, and you're leveraging technology to deliver a better experience. Technology is not displacing you. Technology is making you better. And that's where we're going. And that's where we think everybody who wants to survive long-term and thrive needs to go. But before we can really get to, and we got to the point where we knew this is what we really had to recognize whether or not there was a need for this. There's an old saying that says necessity is the mother of all invention. Well, what is it from our perspective that drove the need for change? Why did we move away from product and focus on process? It's because what we were seeing firsthand was the first generation to retire en masse who were widely responsible for funding the bulk of their retirement, right? No pensions were failing. And the National Institute on Retirement Security has been talking about this for a long time. In 2013, their study, which they repeat roughly every few years, in 2013, they said 92% of Americans were not on pace to meet their retirement savings targets. Now, in 2018, that number dropped to 77%. And at first glance, you would be under the impression, as we were, that somehow maybe people were getting better at saving, because that's the message from the National Institute on Retirement Security and every other, what I'll call academic institution, not-for-profit institution. Their message is we're failing in America from a retirement perspective because we're not great savers. And I'm going to prove to you that it's not savings that are the issue, it's process. But in 2018, their number was 77%. And for a moment, we thought, wow, somehow people have gotten better at saving. But what happened was the fundamental difference between the 2013 and the 2018 report is, for the first time ever, one of these think tank type organizations decided, as part of the readiness and preparedness assessment, they would count the equity people had in their primary residence. So the difference, the movement in the needle here from 92 to 77 was completely attributable to the fact that the NIRS, for the first time, was adding into the amount of capital somebody would have access to fund their retirement, the equity they had in their primary residence. So in essence, we hadn't made any progress. And now we were looking at, arguably much more aggressive approach to how we were going to address retirement. We were going to actually embrace and focus on the idea that you can always unlock through reverse mortgages that equity. But I think we can all agree, yeah, that's a possibility and that's an option, but maybe the option of last resort. Is there anything else we could look at? But for us, our focus was, well, let's focus on the fact that nothing's changed, right? So over that 5-year window, people were no better off. They just took a different approach, right? And it looked like they got a better result, but the result was effectively the same. But truly appreciate the situation that the average American is in, we really have to go back and look at how we got here. For us, we had to go back and say, well, wait a minute, what created, this situation all of a sudden where retirement income plans become such a big thing? And you all know the answer, right? Beginning in the 80s, there was a dramatic shift that occurred in the employer-sponsored retirement plan space. This shift was away from traditional pensions and onto what we'll call portable defined contribution plans like 401k plans. So to be clear, the shift was, the burden was shifted off the employer and onto the employee. And as you know, especially for those of you that were in the industry at the time, in the early 90s, this seemed like the greatest move ever, because employees were contributing to 401k plans. Employers were matching. In those days, it wasn't uncommon to see an employer match dollar for dollar up to 6%, right? And then we had double-digit returns in the marketplace like clockwork. It was unprecedented times. And for those of us who were working at that time, contributing to 401k plans, there was no question in our minds about whether or not we'd be millionaires in retirement. The only question was how many times over. And obviously, all of that was predicated on things that were out of our control, right? How much were the employers going to continue to match? What kind of a return were we going to see in the market? And ultimately, the honeymoon as it relates to 401k plans and defined contribution plans did not continue. And as an industry, we had people saying, what happened to the pensions? And people would say, what pensions? What are you talking about? So this is a quick cartoon, but I think it really kind of sums up, the people In the public sector, who still have pensions, and they're the few that do, the last thing they want to see happen is see their pensions cut. The private sector says, what's a pension? And it's just kind of ironic because the private sector people have convinced, or were convinced, like me in the 90s, this was the greatest thing that could ever happen. In fact, they were talking about, it was so successful, then they were talking about privatizing Social Security. But now here we are, the public sector is saying, gosh, don't take our pensions away, right? It's the single greatest asset most of them have. And at the end of the day, this industry that we're in exploded as a result of the transfer of the burden off the employer and on the employee. The transition off defined benefit plans and onto defined contribution plans is what brought Wall Street to Main Street. And it's what created the industry we see today. There were nowhere near this number of people in the financial planning industry 40 years ago because makeup of financial planning was totally different. Most people contributed to 401k defined benefit plans, or their employers did, and Social Security. And they didn't have a lot of savings. It was only, the concept of financial planning was really reserved for the wealthy, not the middle class, but not today. And just so we're clear, but you all know this, the biggest difference between defined benefit plans and defined contribution plans is promise. Under a defined benefit plan, the promise is that you're going to get a specified amount for the balance of your life, and if you choose a survivor option, the balance of your spouse's life. Under the defined contribution plan, there is no promise of a specific amount at retirement. You're just accumulating money in hope that what you've accumulated is going to be enough to deliver the additional income you need above and beyond what you can collect from Social Security. But there's no promise, right? We have no idea how it's going to work out. And again, in the 1990s, there was no question about how successful it would be. The question was just how successful. It's going to be 3 or 4 times over that you'd be a millionaire rather than just one time. And here we are today. Most people didn't come anywhere near close. And now the academics are telling us the American people are crummy savers. That's the issue. Well, let's think about this for a minute, okay? In 1978, the Revenue Act of 1978 codifies into law the catalyst, what I'm calling unprecedented growth in the financial services industry, and that is Section 401k, which introduces defined contribution plans originally as a supplemental retirement income plan for high earners, becomes the primary retirement income source for virtually everybody in America. And how does that happen? How does something that started out as a supplement become the primary focus? Because industries across America were facing significantly, woefully underfunded defined benefit plans. And if they weren't allowed to transition those plans from defined benefit plans to cash balance plans, they were talking about entire sectors potentially collapsing if they were forced to backfill those underfunded defined benefit plans. They didn't have the money to do it. They couldn't afford to do it. The plans weren't built properly. People weren't living. Longevity wasn't what it is today, 70 years ago when these pension plans came on the scene. So they were woefully underfunded. And they were telling us if we're forced to fortify those plans, it's going to put entire sectors out of business. So we moved the burden off the employer and onto the employee. And here we are, 50 years later, 45 years later, and people are stunned. Oh, Americans are crummy savers. That's the problem. Well, wait a minute. If corporations couldn't afford to do it, they had the power of leverage, right? They could spread the risk across all of their employees, right? The risk of providing income for life across all of their employees, and some will live, 1 year retirement, some will never make their retirement, some will live 30 years in retirement, but they had the power leverage as employers because they had all those employees upon which they could spread the risk. Individuals have no power leverage. It's just them. It's a one-to-one. You're funding your own retirement. You've got to accumulate enough wealth to fully fund it yourself. And we're all shocked that according to academics, the vast majority of Americans are underfunded. Well, no kidding. I mean, who didn't see this coming? But it's happening not because Americans are crummy savers. It's happening because the level of savings that are required are outlandish, right? You're self-funding your retirement income. If you're using an asset allocation approach to deliver income in retirement, you have to have almost every dollar that income plan is expected to deliver on hand the day you retire to succeed with any reasonable probability of success. So, and how big was this shift? By the way, just kind of quantifying it for you, right? So since 1985, corporations have eliminated, at this point, I'm sure well over 85,000 defined benefit plans. In 1990, there were 97,000 401k plans with an estimated 19.5 million participants and 385 billion in assets. By 2015, 25 years later, there were 500,000 plus participants, plans, 65 million participants, and 4.38 trillion in assets. And what's really mind-blowing is just 5 years later, there were 9.4 trillion in retirement assets. So, as the old saying goes, why do you rob banks? That's where the money is. Why do you want to be a retirement income specialist? This is where the money is, but it's also where the needs are. In spite of the fact that we've saved all that money as a society, right? Every academic going is saying people are crummy savers and they do not have enough money. But what you're going to see firsthand from me today is it's not a question about whether or not people have saved enough money. It's a question about whether or not they're embracing the right planning process. So how are we doing? Again, National Institute on Retirement Security in 2018 said 77% of Americans were not on pace to meet their savings targets, even if we include the equity they have in their primary residence. So I would say not too good, right? Not too successful. Looks good on paper. I get a statement says I have, $750,000. I think of that as an asset, but it's not an asset, right? It's an income stream, whether I see it that way or not. And at 73 and a half, Uncle Sam's going to make sure I find out whether I wasn't clear or not that it's an income stream, right? Because at 73, it's all coming out, right? It's going to start to be pushed out to me as income. But we have to evolve or become extinct, not only because technology is coming at us faster than ever, but think about what we're doing. The vast majority of retirement income planning approaches embraces some level of modern portfolio theory, or what I'll more simply call asset allocation. And modern portfolio theory was introduced 71 years ago. Harry Markowitz introduces modern portfolio theory in 1952. Ask yourself a question. What did retirement income planning look like in 1952? Was it even a thing? I said earlier, as recently as the 70s, what people had for retirement was a defined benefit plan and Social Security. That was everybody. In the 1950s, same thing. Defined benefit plans and Social Security. People didn't have tons of disposable income that they could save. They also didn't need to because they had defined benefit plans and Social Security. So their retirement was effectively provided for. They didn't have to save a bunch of money. But modern portfolio theory was not introduced as a tool to deliver income. It was introduced as a way to invest where you could, through diversification, minimize the downside while still participating in the upside. And I'm oversimplifying, but I think you all know that's exactly what happened. And yet here we are, 71 years later, it's still the primary and traditional approach to delivering income. Well, if it wasn't intended, and it certainly couldn't have been intended 71 years ago to be an income strategy, because retirement income wasn't even a thing, what do we need to do? How do we change? And that's my focal point of what we do. We focus not on asset allocation, but we call asset optimization. So traditional retirement income planning is how we describe it when we're talking to people. That's what everybody else does. They use an asset allocation approach. It's speculation based, whether they want to admit it or not. It requires effectively for you to self-insure the bulk of your income, and the numbers prove that. We're focused on 21st century income planning using an asset optimization approach, meaning how do we take everything we have available in the retirement income planning toolbox and optimize it in such a way that the income that your clients need is guaranteed. The plan requires on average 50% less capital, and as a result, we build a better, more fortified plan for the people that depend on us to deliver the income with what they've been able to accumulate. Because if somebody arrives at your door and like NIRS, they're 77% underfunded using a traditional approach, because what nobody tells you is all those research projects that say Americans are crummy savers, the one thing they all assume is everybody takes Social Security benefits early. They give no consideration for the role that taking Social Security benefits at a different time may have on somebody's savings requirement and the impact it might have on the overall economic health of retiring Americans. But we do. Through the 21st century retirement income planning process, we start with Social Security. What role could taking Social Security at a different time, not just early like everybody else, what role could taking Social Security benefits at a different time have on the outcome of somebody's plan? Because somebody shows up at your door ready to retire, your hands are tied, your options are limited, right? There's no time to save more money. You can't write them a check and handing them a winning lottery ticket. So they created the situation, not you. What could you can only do what you can do based upon what they've given you to work with, unless you start with Social Security. So here's a quick case study to show you how all of this can come together. But let's say we have a couple, both 66 and 4 months. Their annual retirement income goal is $108,000. They want an income that lasts for 30 years, and they would like the probability of success to be 90%. So as an aside, the Bengen study, which is very popular and gave us the 4% initial safe withdrawal rate, or what they call safe max rule, they sought to achieve an 80% probability of success. We've got a proprietary software we've built, we've been using for years. Nobody picks 80 except financial advisors. Clients never pick 80. They pick 90, 95. They do not pick 80. So we focus on, in this case study, how much capital will we need to accumulate? If we have a $108,000 income goal beginning at FRA, 66 and 4 months, we want that income to last for 30 years. We want it to be inflated by 2.5% per year to combat the impact of inflation. And we seek a 90% probability of success. And by the way, we're going to assume they've saved $1.2 million. But the question is that enough? So if we have a scenario where a couple says we're going to take benefits early, and early in this case is at what they call full retirement age, 66 and 4 months, and their Social Security numbers are 32 and 28, then they're going to get from Social Security alone $6,000 a month or $72,000 a year. So what we're going to test is the additional income we need to provide above and beyond Social Security is $1.2 million enough to meet the plan's objectives, 30 years, 90% probability of success. And then we'll look at, what if we waited? What if instead of taking benefits at 66 and 4 months, we waited till 70? Because as you all know, there's a benefit to waiting. You earn what's known as delayed retirement credits, and your income from Social Security is going to be that much more as a result. But let's look at the impact that taking benefits can have at a different time, because I can't get you to save more money if you show up on my doorstep at 66 and 4 months. Can't write you a check. I can't hand you a winning lottery ticket. But the one thing I can explore is whether or not taking Social Security benefits at a different time could put you in a better position. So if they take benefits early, I'm calling early 66 and 4 months, and Social Security provides $72,000, then they need $36,000 from their assets. If they wait till 70, Social Security is going to provide that much more thanks to delayed retirement credits. So once Social Security benefits kick in at 70, the gap is going to be considerably smaller. What we want to know is, can that have a positive impact on the amount of capital plan requires? So if they're going to take benefits early, the gap is $36,000, and we use initial safe withdrawal rates to quantify how much capital is going to be required to meet the plan objectives. And that's 30 years at a 90+% probability of success. We need $1.5 million. This is exactly how we do it. It's all quantifiable. It's just math. This number, the initial safe withdrawal rate, is a net number. So the Bengen study gave us 4%. That's a gross number. They were attempting to achieve an 80% probability of success. When we bump it to 90, it drops to 4 to 3.4. And then we have to make some assumption for fees to get to a net number. We're assuming 100 basis points in fees. Now we have a net number, 2.4%. So if I need to put $36,000 of additional income in my client's pocket to get them to the $108,000 they seek, so 72 from Social Security and 36,000 from their capital, and the net number, the net percentage that I can put in their pocket is 2.4%, then I need $1.5 million. Well, they have $1.2 million. So surprise, surprise. The earlies are just like everybody else. They're underfunded. They haven't saved enough money. They fall right in line with what all the academics are telling us, that the issue in this country is not, that defined contribution plans aren't the answer, that defined contribution plans can't compete with defined benefit plans. It's that the earlies just did a crappy job saving. Well, wait a minute. What if they waited? What if the same couple waited until 70? Well, Social Security is going to provide considerably more income at 70 than it does at 66 and 4 months. And after we inflate that remaining gap to account for inflation, because they're still retiring at 66 and 4 months, just not taking benefits till 70, we have a $16,294 inflation-adjusted gap we're going to have to fill once they take Social Security benefits at 70. So how much do we need to close this remaining gap once the higher Social Security benefit kicks in? Well, first thing we need to do is adjust the initial safe withdrawal rate, because our objectives are 30 years. We're 3 years, 8 months into the 30 years. So the initial safe withdrawal rate is higher. The income gap is lower thanks to delaying taking Social Security benefits. And the capital required to meet their objectives, the remaining years at 90%, is $604,978, considerably less than the 1.5. So we took them from underfunded to potentially overfunded. And by the way, it didn't require them, right, to save any more money. We just utilized a different approach. But if we're going to use this approach, there's an added dimension, because in both instances, I'm assuming they're going to retire at 66 in 4 months, just not take benefits till 70 under the later scenario, right? In the early scenario, they're going to take benefits right away. We're going to close a $36,000 gap for the balance of their lives. Under the later scenario, we're going to carry them using their own money from 66 in 4 months to 70. We're not going to collect any Social Security. So that means we have to establish what's known as the bridge capital. How much of their money we're going to have to use to bridge them between their retirement age and 70 when Social Security benefits kick in? Well, it's $108,000 a year for 3 years and 8 months, inflated at 2.5%. The total bridge capital, assuming they spent every penny that they need, is $410,091. Add that to the amount we need to close the gap at 70 when Social Security benefits now begin at a higher rate. The total capital requirement is $1,015,000. So again, just to be clear, through our process, we took the same income goal, the same time horizon, the same inflation assumption, the same portfolio construct, the same primary insurance amounts, the same probability of success, and the difference, the only difference, is when how we took Social Security benefits, and the impact is profound. They go from needing $1.5 million to just over $1 million. That's a $485,000 swing in your client's favor, and they go from underfunded by $300,000 because they only have $1.2 million to overfunded, right? And that didn't happen because we wrote them a check, we handed them a winning lottery ticket, we're better at picking stocks or bonds. It's because we leveraged one of the tools in the toolbox that's often totally ignored. Now, they go from underfunded by $300,000, like I said, to overfunded by $185,000. That's a $485,000 swing in their favor, and we did it just by being better at process. What impact did it have on the overall experience that they're going to have in retirement? Well, the percentage of their income goal that's guaranteed is going to go from 67 to 86, which is directly attributable to the amount coming from inflation. The amount that's automatically inflation adjusted is 86%, and the amount that's considered taxable is only 38%. That's an added benefit. Plays no role in the capital calculation. We've delivered a better, more fortified plan for less capital, taking them from underfunded to overfunded. It's also more tax efficient and delivers a significantly higher survivor benefit. Now, how can we truly optimize this plan and make it better? Instead of looking just at an asset allocation approach, which under an asset allocation approach, we need 604,978 to close the gap at 70, and the 410 in bridge capital, we needed $1,015,000. That was better than the $1,005,000 we needed originally, but how could we make it better? Well, instead of utilizing and considering just an asset allocation approach, what about an asset optimization approach? What about an approach where we carve off a fixed amount of capital today in return for having a contractually guaranteed income stream for the balance of 2 lives? And the cost of that is $237,955. So reposition $237,955 today in a guaranteed lifetime income benefit rider using a fixed indexed annuity coupled with the bridge capital. Now the capital requirement is $648,046. So think about what just happened here. We focused on initial safe withdrawal rates to quantify how much capital we need to use an asset allocation approach. And by taking benefits at 70, we went from needing $1,005,000 to $1,015,000. Now we said, what if we optimize the assets we're going to use to fund the balance of the income at 70? What if instead of using an asset allocation approach, we use the leveraged approach and optimize those assets, the leveraged approach being the annuity, $237,955, plus the same bridge capital because we're still assuming taking benefits at 70, and now the capital requirement is $648,046. So I told you earlier, we can build a better, more fortified plan for on average 50% less capital, and we do it not by picking the right stocks, right bonds, getting lucky. It's by leveraging all the tools in the toolbox, by embracing the complexity of Social Security and quantifying the value that not only Social Security, but the leveraged approach of an annuity can bring to the income planning process, and we're delivering the same plan, or a better plan, I would argue, for considerably less capital. The swing in the client's favor is under the original plan and the most traditional approach, they're $300,000 underfunded. Under the optimized plan that I just walked you through, they're $552,000 overfunded. That's an $52,000 swing in their favor, and it all happened simply because of my process. Not a product, right? not a timing. I didn't get lucky. It's all about the fact that I'm unique, I'm different, I'm specialized, and I use a different process. At the end of the day, not only am I delivering a less capital intensive solution, but look at what it does for them practically and tactically. Under the earliest plan, they had $1.2 million. They have to commit 100% of the capital to the income bucket. That's still only 75% of what good credible science says the income bucket needs. There's nothing left for them on discretionary spending. There's nothing left for legacy. This is the typical situation. This is why academics say the vast majority of Americans are crummy savers. It's all their fault. But the reality is this is a terrible situation for them, not only because they're underfunded, but the only place they have capital is in the income bucket. And if they need more than their monthly check, they're going to have to invade and destabilize even further an already underfunded and highly unstable plan, because most people aren't willing to delay retirement. They don't want to save more money. They don't want to assume less income in retirement. They're just going to move forward unless they work with a specialist. In the specialist model, we commit 54% of the actual capital they have, or $648,046. There's $551,000 left. We could put it all in the discretionary bucket and explain you can burn through it all before you ever destabilize this fully funded, fully inflation adjusted, highly tax efficient plan that we built you using an optimization approach, an asset optimization approach, right? So you want access, you want control, you want liquidity. Nothing's going to deliver that to you better than an asset optimization approach. And again, it didn't come down to having a better product. It came down to having a better solution. So when we look at the 4 areas of concern, percent that's guaranteed, percent that's inflation adjusted, percent that's considered taxable, and finally the survivor benefit, there is no doubt that an asset optimization approach is what's in your client's best interest by every possible measure. Not only that, the people who pay the price for a poorly designed retirement income plan are the surviving spouses. More often than not, those are widows. And you guys can understand, we're tight on time, but simply put, 80% of men die married, 80% of women die single. It's the women who pay the price for poorly designed plans. And the last thing I'll say on this is more than 80% of widows change financial advisors. You certainly don't think they do that because they feel like taking up financial planning as a hobby as a widow, right? They do it out of desperation. So the real question is the issue that people aren't saving enough money, or is the issue, if I've done my job here this afternoon, they're working with the wrong people? And we would make the case all day that they're working with the wrong people. So asset allocation is a hope-so approach. Asset optimization is a no-so approach. What do we know? We know exactly how much capital we'll need to accumulate or commit today for the plan to meet its objectives, which also means we know exactly how much we have left to live in retirement today. What do we have left that we can do better, more fortified things with? So to close it out, I'm sorry, Glenn, I'm going over here a little bit, but there's really been 2 measures that people have talked about in financial planning for a long time. David Blanchett and Paul Kaplan at Morningstar introduced in 2013 a third they're calling Advisor Gamma. And Advisor Gamma speaks directly to what we're doing. Advisor Alpha is all about excess return, right? It's how does your recommendation and your portfolio, how does the portfolio that you run deliver a better result than essentially your peer group? And most would say that part of the value of actively managed portfolios is you get a better alpha. But then the negative people say, yeah, but the alpha gets wiped out by the additional fee, so you should just buy indexes. But that's the alpha story, right? And then there was beta. Beta was really just about risk, right? It's a measurement of risk and how one portfolio might be less risky than its peer group or its benchmark. But what we're focused on really, and what I want to talk about in closing, is Gamma. So what is Gamma? And I stole this from Mike from the Nerd's Eye View. Michael Kitces, the guy's great. I don't agree with him on everything, but I think he really writes some really powerful stuff. But he says Gamma is a longstanding challenge of financial planning has been the fact that its value is usually defined by intangible terms like bringing peace of mind, or at least over time horizons too long to effectively evaluate, helping people achieve their long-term goals. Meaning the value you bring as a financial advisor has never really been quantifiable in his opinion, or the opinion of the guys at Morningstar. Yet arguably the value of financial planning could be better quantified by trying to measure how much economically better off clients are by engaging in financial planning strategies than what they would have otherwise done. This is where you come in. At a time where it's all about advice, it's all about client best interest, The most important thing you can do is quantify your value through Advisor Gamma, and our process does that for you. Here it is. You saw it firsthand. What's the value of asset optimization? What's your Advisor Gamma? This is an almost an $852,000 swing in the client's favor. What does that mean? If you're going to move forward with the advisor who's recommending that you do this, that you take benefits early, commit all $1.2 million, even though you need $1.5 million and you're underfunded by $300,000, you better think really highly of that financial advisor, because you're giving up $852,000 of economic value. That's undeniable and quantifiable. This is the value you bring. You make it so they're not underfunded by $300,000 and that they're overfunded by $552,000. For this advisor to suggest they're going to give the same experience you do, they've got to backfill this strategy, write them a check for $300 to make them whole, and then write them another check for $552,000 they can spend any way you want. That's Advisor Gamma for you, not to mention the impact that the plan has on the taxability. Note here, percent taxable, 38% versus 61%. And the survivor benefit, almost $66,000. That's the guaranteed versus 38.4. And by the way, if we took that excess capital and invested at just 5%, which is an achievable number, we know none of it is needed for income. What's it worth in 10, 20, and 30 years? So for those clients who want to have their cake and eat it too, which is everybody, and they've been told legacy is not a possibility, they'll be lucky not to be a burden on somebody else, introduce them to asset optimization. Here's the traditional approach. Here's the optimized approach. And the impact is profound. So asset allocation versus asset optimization, it begins with process. It begins with getting educated. In addition to RICP, we highly recommend that you put yourself in a position where you can speak intelligently about the impact that Social Security can have on any retirement income plan. And my organization, the Corporation for Social Security Claiming Strategies, provides that level of education, which Derek can talk to you more about. We've been all over the industry for years now, in the tools that we provide through our partnership at Athena and DMI, the second to none in quantifying Advisor Gamma and really providing a quantifiable value through process. So I'll say this to close it all out. I've never seen anything capture the dichotomy between asset allocation and asset optimization better than this little cartoon right here. This says it all about retirement income planning. Asset allocation is simple. Asset optimization, many see on the surface, is complex. But when I'm done with the next two series, you'll see not only is it not complex, it's far simpler and totally quantifiable. Everybody is taking this path, not because it's truly simple, but because they give up. Nobody's showing them a quantifiable approach, and those that are significantly better off. So I'll stop there, Glenn. And Maureen, I know there might be some questions. Sorry, I went over a little bit. A lot to talk about in a very short time, but hopefully that got everybody's attention. I look forward to coming back next time and talking about the challenges to becoming a true retirement income specialist.
Thanks very much, Andy. You know what? No problem at all, man. It's a great presentation. And, I just want to say that you're a great partner to us. And I think at the front end, I could have explained your background a little bit more, but I wanted to get into the topic. But the reason why we partner with Andy is because not only is he an expert in Social Security, I mean, there's other programs out there where, you can learn all kinds of stuff about Social Security regulations and laws and whatnot. But Andy really understands how it applies in our space, and brings it to the street, brings it to the advisor in a way that makes sense for the business. So that's what we love about Andy, and I think you can probably see that in the presentations. With that being said, I do want to check to see, Maureen, if we've got some questions that we want to cover. I know we're over, but for example, like speaking to prospects to get them to listen. What do you want to say? Some of those kinds of questions. Maybe we could grab a couple of those real quick.
Absolutely. I was actually just thinking, if we want to talk about how you're going to talk to prospects to simply get them to listen this type of information. So you had talked earlier, Andy, about, people are not the best kinds of savers. How do we get to them as a prospect early enough to be able to have this conversation with them?
Yeah, and I would tell you, the big challenge, obviously, with the retirement world the way it is most plans are not going to let you tap into those assets until you're 59 and a half, right? Very few still have a separation of service requirement, but that's why we target people 60 to 67. And the way we get them to listen is we invite them to educational events. So you guys obviously have all those tools that you can share with this group when you deem appropriate, but the advisors that we work with who are the most successful use an educational approach, which again, Glenn and Maureen and Derek and the whole team have everything we have. And that's an educational approach that you can use with existing clients, you can use with prospects, you can do one-on-ones with, you can do workshops at colleges and universities, dinner seminars. You can make it as involved or as simplistic as you want. But the simple message that the retirement income specialists that we work with deliver is, they say, simply put, that they're retirement income specialists and they build better, more fortified retirement income plans for an average 50% less capital. So what that means to you, Mr. and Mrs. Client, is you'll go from potentially underfunded to fully funded to overfunded. So the thing that you lose sleep over every time you think about retirement goes away, not because you have to save more money, not because you have to delay retirement, but because we take a different, right, more specialized approach. And for those who've saved enough money or more than enough money, we build plans, again, that require 50% less capital, which means all that additional capital that you thought you needed that you don't now need for the retirement income plan, you can use for better, what we call more important things, like legacy planning, right? Gifting, traveling, whatever is important to you, but you can live a much better retirement off the same dollars simply because you're working with a specialist who embraces a better process. And that process, again, yields better, more fortified plans for an average 50% less capital. So regardless of where you are, you're underfunded, you're fully funded, you're overfunded, you're going to be better off working with a specialist than you are with working with a generalist. So hopefully that helps.
And there was another question regarding, how we can help you stand out in your community. And, I would mention that we do have a do-it-yourself campaign that you can use that has all the plug-and-play social media, emails, follow-up questions, invitations to a webinar, and a webinar with a complete PowerPoint presentation, fully scripted. So that will help you stand out in your community. But also the CSSCS designation can help. So through DMI, you can get a discounted enrollment with CSSCS, the Corporation for Social Security Claiming Strategies, and be a part of the mastermind sessions we have every quarter. You have one-on-one sessions with Andy. I mean, the value there is immense, and that's just the beginning. We've got a whole host of other assets and programs around CSSCS and 21st century planning. So, Maureen, is there another question we should ask, or did?
I think there's just one more important question that we just want to touch on today. And Andy, with your experience, I know you've worked with a lot of wealth managers, RAs, and broker dealers. So how does this all fit in with the best interest laws and regulations? Is there some language that assists people working with broker dealers with all, I love this phrase, the bevy of forms needed to process?
Yeah, that's an understatement in this business. We've gone from virtually no paperwork. We used to be able to open up a brokerage account on a trifold, right? Now you need an encyclopedia of paperwork. But, well, what I would tell you is the software itself and the output is a tremendous value from the point of Reg BI and documenting that you're doing what's in the client's best interest. So my experience with the folks that we work with is they use the output of the tool to deliver the quantitative results they need to, whether it's a suitability review or looking to just provide some, I guess, justification for, I think I understand the question, maybe the product. So everything you would need to fill, there's no additional paperwork. Obviously, you've got to complete the paperwork that your firm requires, but everything you would need from a quantitative perspective to justify the recommendation and why this and not an asset allocation approach that's in the client's best interest is there. And you can use it not only to complete your paperwork, but I would include an output with any paperwork, like you might do with when you have to do an annuity contract. You have to put the illustration in there, put in the output from the software. That's what we do, and frankly, it makes life even easier. So hopefully that answers your question. But I'm happy to do a one-off on that if somebody wants to go through it and talk about what their requirements are. Maybe they're more arduous there from other places. Who knows? So whatever I can do to help with that, let me know.
Well, and we do have our webinar 2 and webinar 3 coming up, so we want people to attend those. But before we end, though, I just wanted to get some thoughts from Derek. Derek, I know you're an advocate for everything that Andy is saying, and you'd be the man for people to reach out to. I've got your contact information up right now, but if you want to share a few words, we'd appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been great information. I have a whole note page of notes on here. I think, Andy really showed the importance of being a specialist and not just a generalist, and having a process that will really ultimately help you to maximize each case that you're working on and increase your close ratio, right? Which over time allows you to help more clients, allows you to take your business to that next level. I feel like we've just scratched the surface on everything that we can go through, and the time just flew by. So I would encourage you all to, attend the additional webinars that we have coming up next Wednesday and the Wednesday following, I believe. And if you have any questions in the interim, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'd be happy to help. We've got a ton of great resources available, marketing systems and tools, right? Again, to help you take your business to that next level. So with that, yeah, Andy, thank you. This was awesome. I'll give it back to you, Glenn, and let you wrap it up.
Thanks, Derek. Yeah. And if you want to get started with CSSCS, reach out to Derek. He can give you the details. But as always, Andy, thanks for all the support. We really appreciate the partnership. And for everybody attending, thanks for all the questions and all the engagement today. We will see you on the next one. We're also going to send out a recording of this, and we'll remind you about the upcoming webinars. So again, thank you so much. Everybody have a nice day.
Great. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.